House Bill 493, and here we go again. This legislation is to prevent any political subdivisions, and there is a definition for that in the bill. It means any county, city, public health district, school district, special purpose district, or other district or municipality organized under any general or specific law of the state. But it does not include any hospital or healthcare facility. So this is legislation to prohibit any city, state, county political subdivision from mandating mask wearing. This does not limit anyone's ability to wear a mask if that's what they so choose to do for themselves. This is I guess a personal sovereignty bill, freedom bill, health freedom, to make your own decisions, your own health decisions.
Oh yeah, we're all experts, just like the Mayo Clinic.
So there were concerns about I'll give you an example. If there is a government employer who employs painters that go around and paint buildings, office buildings, etc., and they need to wear a mask in order to do their job safely so they're not breathing in fumes, that is exempt from this. So,
but not diseases.
It does say in here,
not viruses that can kill you.
The exemption is strictly limited to those working in roles where face masks are an integral and compulsory safety component of required job duties.
Can't you read the ALEC bill?
So if there's a welder, for example, they have to wear a mask. So that's exempt from this.
Oh, yeah.
This
we don't want to prevent any
is
diseases
pointed,
like the 1.2 million Americans
this has come
that
before
died.
You before and passed.
The United States has 4% of the population of the world, and we had 17%
in previous years. And this year, bringing it back, we have addressed the concerns of the people, and this is a people's bill. This is the people's bill. The people want this.
You bet it is. People
protecting
don't know.
their
Are you
own,
a medical
making
expert?
their own choices.
Nah. This might as well be coming from Russia, as far as I'm concerned.
So I'm going to yield the rest of my time over to the great senator from District 13, I believe, Senator Lenny.
Senator Lenny.
Yeah, the Mayo
Welcome
Clinic.
To the committee. Please state your name for the record.
Oh,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian Lenny from the great city of Nampa in Canyon County, one of Idaho's shining gems. So trust the science. We heard that for years and years and years. Follow the data, listen to the experts. It feels like
the
just
World Health
yesterday we were
Organization
in the midst of the COVID crisis, and although there were several missteps, I believe, looking back, that most of us were just trying to do the best we could with the information we had. It's kind of our first COVID crisis. But as we sit here today in 2024, it's crystal clear to me, and I think to probably most of us in this room, if we admit it, that much of our COVID response was unscientific, unjustified, and frankly absurd. We saw medical coercion, social distancing, moms being arrested in parks, snipers on the roof of our Central District Health building during a public meeting, and forced masking also topped the list of those absurdities. And under the heavy hand of the CDC and Dr. Anthony Fauci, the science, we were upset.
Are you a scientist,
and the science, I should say, we were obsessed with forcing not just free-thinking adults, but even toddlers as young as 2 years old to wear face masks. And we all remember those chilling videos of adults forcing crying children to wear masks. And in schools, mostly, we saw those.
I had polio when I was a kid.
We all lived
viruses.
through it. We're here 4 years back. We're here in 2024 looking back. But, I remember the shaming, the gaslighting, and the paranoia on both sides of every debate that had to do with COVID was almost palpable. It's almost tangible. And although many of us suspected it at the time,
Are you reading
New
this from
research has
the
now
Koch
proven what
brothers?
we thought all along, that much of this was pointless, especially the forced masking. I have 3 examples of that. In a congressional hearing just 3 months ago on restoring trust in science in Congress in D.C., CDC Director Mandy Cohen evaded questions on whether she would bring back mask mandates. 6 days later, in December 2023, a BMJ journal, medical journal, published a study that found, quote, mask recommendations are not supported by scientific evidence.
Oh, you are incredibly...
Third one, the CDC posted a
you're
blog
using
3
a
weeks
phony
ago
baloney.
from today, just 3 weeks
Political
ago.
organization.
The CDC put out a blog warning that the CDC's own scientists got the science wrong when it came to masking. I could go on and on and on,
Yeah,
but
go on
other
and
people
on
want
with
to
your
testify
lies,
as
sir.
well. So I would say that the current body of scientific data does not support masking for protection against disease. That's one point. There's a scientific argument to be made. But the real issue wasn't just the scientific issue. It was the serious harm they did to Idahoans both immediately and over time, which affected our health, our minds, our development, and our community as a whole.
COVID-19, you ever heard of long
And with
haul?
whispers of a new pandemic stirring,
People
every time
lost
you look at
their
the
hair.
news, there's a new mystery disease in China. There's disease X.
They lost their
They're
memory.
talking about having another pandemic.
About 35 million
Now's
women.
the crucial moment to
and
shield
35%
Idahoans
of
from
those that lost
from the
their
kind of
memory and
government
having long-haul
overreach and, in
effects
my
are
opinion,
women.
medical tyranny that marked the
About
COVID
35,
crisis.
40 million.
Forced masking is not just unscientific, like I said, but I believe it to be a direct
We don't
assault.
want to do anything for health of each other.
Our fundamental rights to bodily integrity and autonomy that are enshrined in the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution.
Oh,
So
yeah, bring
today
up the
I stand
amendment,
firm
yeah.
in the conviction that no government official, politician, or bureaucrat has the authority to strip us
Yeah, but
of
how
this
about the medical
of our
community,
inalienable
CDC,
rights.
who
This is
keeps
not a
us safe
path
from
we can
diseases
afford to
like
tread
the
again.
14
Instead, we must ensure that our response to any health crisis
vaccines
respects the
that
dignity, freedom,
children
and well-being of all Idahoans, and it's grounded in
You're
genuine
putting everybody
science
at
and
risk with
unwavering
this
respect
dumb,
for individual
dissertation
rights. And I know
and justification for this
everyone
bill.
probably has an
I
opinion.
can
Everyone
talk
has an
over
opinion
this.
on this.
This is absolutely
And there's other people who are
stupid.
signed up to testify, so I'll just leave it there and
Irresponsible.
stand for questions.
Thank you, Senator Linney. Committee, do we have any questions for Senator Linney? Representative Gannon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and welcome, Senator Linney. And either for you or your co-sponsor, so what happens if in school a child comes to school, is coughing and hacking, parents aren't home, they've gone off to work, and child's okay, but does have a cough and whatnot, and so the school nurse says, okay, well, you can go in the classroom, kind of sit over here, and in a particular place, and please put on a mask, because if you're coughing, I mean, ever since I was a kid, you're not supposed to cough in somebody's face because people think that'll communicate the germs. So this bill would seem to restrict the school nurse or the principal or the teacher from saying, okay, just cover yourself and in that kind of situation.
Senator Linney.
COVID is
Madam
transmitted
Chair,
by
Representative Gannon, it would.
water when you breathe
that's
out.
the point of the bill. Yeah, it would.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any further questions, committee? Chairman Crane.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Linney. To pick up on the line of questioning where Representative Gannon was headed, what do we do, what did parents do, and what did teachers do in a situation before the pandemic in that type of a scenario?
Senator Linney.
Madam Chair and Chairman Crane, I don't know. I mean, like, to answer
I
the
don't
question,
know.
I don't think a hacking, coughing, sick kid should be at school in the first place. I think
They do, though.
I think this bill I'm
Both
arguing
parents work.
here in that situation is kind of outside of the scope of this, because
Uh-huh.
I homeschool, so I just tell my kids to go to
Oh, okay.
the room.
You keep your kids at
But,
home.
you know.
You're one of those, eh? Uh-huh.
Thank you, Senator Linney. Any further questions?
Don't trust public schools.
All right.
Privatizing.
Got off easy. Thank you.
So we have a list of folks who have signed up to give testimony on this bill. First up, we'll have, let's see, we've got, which ones are in person, Chairman? Oh, there we go. Okay, let's begin with in-person testimony. David Pettinger, please come forward and state your name and who you represent for the committee. The time is yours.
David Pettinger, District 14. Hopefully we got this mic echo fixed. I would like to make an announcement to Idaho Public Television, because normally this is when they start the blackout screen when I get up to testify. So I think they're taxpayer funded, so if you would note to them to start blacking out now, similar to my health and welfare testimony now would be a good time. But I do see members of this committee. This is a smart committee. I've seen a lot of members of this committee over the last few years, and I know that this is a bill that you support because I see conservatives on this committee. I see liberty-minded individuals on this committee. I want to take you back in time a little bit to some things that I saw with some individuals that weren't as smart as this committee. I know a lot of members of this committee did not wear masks. There was an incident at the courthouse, the Ada County Courthouse, where under Scott Johnson, then the interim sheriff, and the, I believe it was the Supreme Court orders of Burdick, and then later his follow-up, and also the administrative judge, which I think was Hippler, and they had locked the people out of the courthouse, which everyone here knows is unconstitutional. There was a couple members in front of the courthouse trying to attend their hearing. When they tried to attend their hearing, they weren't allowed into the courthouse because they weren't wearing masks. Because they weren't wearing masks, Judge Manweiler put an order out for their arrest. They were then pulled into the courtroom, pulled into the courthouse without a mask on their face.
This guy is the Idaho Freedom Foundation guy.
Walked through the courthouse without a mask on.
He didn't say who he was.
And then thrown in the Ada County jail. So I think that this bill should go to the floor, do pass a recommendation, because that kind of
Idaho
stuff
Freedom
is unnecessary
Foundation, funded
for the people of
by
Idaho.
the
Thank
Koch
you.
brothers, ALEC organization.
Thank you, Mr. Pettinger. Any questions, committee, for Mr. Pettinger? Okay. Seeing none, our next person up will be Kelly Packer. Kelly, if you'll come forward and state your name and who you represent. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. My name is Kelly Packer. I am the Executive Director for the Association of Idaho City, and I stand here in opposition of this bill.
Good on you.
I want to first thank all of you for the hard work that you do. I know that you have to struggle through a lot of hard issues on a regular basis. I remember that well. I would ask that you take into consideration that local officials have to do the exact same thing. When we went through the pandemic, none of us had the science that we currently have in front of us. We were simply trying to do the best we could with what we had. It went from 1 week to 1 month to 1 year and longer. And none of us knew throughout that time frame that it would last that long. We simply tried to manage the best we could with what we had. We also didn't know the scientific data at that time. We had a pandemic on our hand, an emergency. And I would ask you not to tie locals' hands in dealing with emergencies that may come in the future. None of us know what they will look like. None of us know what they will entail or what we may need to do to try to keep people safe. We had locals finding themselves in a situation where they had to meet open meeting laws that were passed in this state as well as try to keep people safe. And if you go to most of the city halls in this beautiful state that we live in, there's only maybe 12 to 15 feet total. So you get more than 2 people in there. They could not meet the requirements of the 6 feet setback, and masks were important because none of us knew what we were dealing with. I think also the important point to make here is that locals went through that too, and maybe they didn't make always the best decisions at the time, but they learned from them. They probably will not be quite as reactive this next time, and they will do even better. But again, they need to be able to act in whatever circumstance they may find themselves in, just like you do. And so I would ask you to oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Packer, are there any questions? Representative Skog.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ms. Packer, good to see you. I'm familiar with AIC, and you do some great work. Was your board unanimous to oppose this?
Senator, oh my gosh, Representative Packer. Ms. Packer, my apologies.
No worries, Madam Chair and Representative Skog. The board was yes. Now, whether there's some cities that are not on the board that feel differently, that could be the case, but our board itself, which represents small and large across the whole state, we have 7 districts from top to bottom, so that we can get representatives from each area, as well as a large and a small from each, and past presidents on the board. All of them were unanimous in opposition to this. Thank you.
Any further questions, committee? Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Representative Packard. Nice to see you again.
Ditto.
My question is, do the Idaho Association of Cities, do they see that it's the city's responsibility for the safety of their citizens or the safety and health of their citizens?
Ms. Packer.
Madam Chair, Representative Scott, both. And they do the best with the information they have at the time, which is exactly what they did during the pandemic. I know there's a lot of high emotions around this. There are on both sides. And I'm not saying that that maybe the state didn't go too far with business closures, with masks, with everything, including at the local level, but we had limited information. We didn't know how long the pandemic would last, all of those things. It's really easy to look backwards and say what we would have done differently. And I'm just asking that in emergency services, locals have the ability to make the decisions they need to make for the health and safety of their communities.
Representative Scott, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Packard. I'm curious if the cities or the Idaho Association of Cities on behalf of the cities do anything else to address health and safety of their citizens when it comes to maybe issues that are more pressing, like heart attack or diabetes. Do they get involved with like stopping sugary drinks and stuff like that? Because those are health and safety issues too, and I'm just wondering what the Idaho Association of Cities promotes for other health and safety issues rather than a cold.
Ms. Packer.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Scott. First, the association didn't promote mask mandates. It was a decision made at the local levels. We are just simply promoting, protecting the ability for locals to make those decisions as they need. You have a variety of cities and sizes throughout the state, and they do manage various things. Some will do after-school programs, for example. Some will do mental health programs. Some will, to the extent possible, deal in maybe work with Alzheimer's or the Heart Association or so forth. Not all cities can do that because most of your smaller cities, which is the largest portion of the cities in Idaho, don't have funds to deal with much more than just streets, water and sewer, parks, and those emergency services basics. Larger cities have additional funds that they can do some additional things, and the association does try to help with additional programming where they can, again, with limited funds. The pandemic was a different situation in that we were reacting to the need to provide open meetings with also an unknown health risk with people coming into those close quarters. So it was a matter of trying to manage a circumstance specific to a city responsibility.
All right. Representative Crane.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Kelly, for being here. What did, like the city of Boise, for example, use as enforcement for not complying with the mask mandate?
Ms. Packer.
Madam Chair and Representative Crane, I can't answer that question. I don't know. I didn't keep track of what all the cities were doing because at that time I wasn't with the association, for one. I came to the association on April 27th of 2020 after the pandemic had started. And it's not something that I tracked. So I couldn't answer that question.
Follow-up?
Yeah,
Representative
thank you, Madam Chair. If I remember right, I think they were going as far as a misdemeanor, which for non-compliance, they were even going to jail time. I remember during that time driving into Boise and being worried that even being in my truck, I might get pulled over and, discuss with an officer or somebody about not wearing one. Do you think that it's important that cities have that kind of authority to throw people in jail if they don't comply with the mask mandate? If Senator Linney is correct and there's another pandemic in the near future, do you think that's something that they should have the ability to do?
Ms. Packer.
Madam Chair and Representative Crane, to be honest, I do remember that Boise had something on the books about going to jail and so forth, but I don't think it was ever enforced. To be honest, I don't think anybody did go to jail. I don't know that, and so I hate to speak to something that I don't know. That being said, you're talking about 1 out of 200 cities that maybe took something farther than what you would have wanted them to, or that others may have wanted them to. I really would caution this body in making a mandate for all cities who are trying to do their very best because of one. And again, I can't answer to the fact of what actually happened in Boise, and I'm sorry.
That's okay. No further questions. Thanks.
Chairman Crane.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Ms. Packer. I think that's one of the concerns that we're dealing with post-pandemic. My city did a decent job managing the crisis. I don't believe there was mask mandates that were required, but there were in Boise, for example. So one of the policy positions that we look at is predictability for citizens as they move across the state. So in the Treasure Valley alone, you have multiple jurisdictions, each city that's handling this differently. Mm-hmm. So if one is putting a penalty, maybe it's a fine, maybe another one's jail time, maybe another one is, whatever. A citizen, as they drive from city to city, don't know what the penalty is going to be for a violation, or if there is a penalty. So don't you think that there's some validity to our position that there should be, with respect to masks, a policy statewide that creates certainty and predictability for the citizens of Idaho, no matter what jurisdiction they're in? They're in the sovereign state of Idaho, and this is unacceptable no matter what.
Ms. Packer.
Madam Chair and Chairman Crane, I hear what you're saying, but you also have very unique circumstances in each of those areas. Boise is the largest population base in the state. They had more people that they were trying to manage through a pandemic with than many of our cities. So, I mean, that can go both ways, right? And I'm getting texts from people. It looks like, and I just got from the city of Boise, the Boise Police Department tried to focus more on education than anything else, and that the city never sent anyone to jail for the mask situation. So I did get that information from the city of Boise, who's probably watching. And I think that that's truly at the heart of this. Most of your local electeds aren't out to harm their residents by throwing them in jail for a mask mandate, or for trying to or in violation of something that none of us knew how to handle. They're simply trying their best to manage a very chaotic and uncertain circumstance, an emergency. And that's why we're asking that you allow them the tools to do that. Again, I think that you're going to find that the cities have already learned exactly what you're learning as well. And that is that maybe we did go too far in certain circumstances, and we could just make it mandatory in our city halls, right, when people are going to be in close proximity with each other or whatnot. But what I'm asking is allow them to manage the unknowns in the future that they may face when they're the ones responsible for that population in their jurisdiction.
Follow-up.
Certainly. Chairman Crane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ms. Packer, I understand your position of allowing the cities to manage that. However, the concern that I have sitting on this side of it is I'm sure they learned from it. But if they have the power to do it again, they can. And I don't know who the mayor will be of X city. And that mayor may see things differently because they weren't in office at that point. And so I think that what we're trying to do is say, hey, here's a baseline. You're not going to tell citizens that they have to mask up and have situations like Mr. Pettinger referenced, where people couldn't even get to court, or they were going to get thrown in jail because they felt like that their rights were being abused or violated. So do you think that from our perspective, do you understand that having a uniform baseline, this is not acceptable, is a decent position for us to be in?
Ms. Packer.
Madam Chair and Chairman Crane, yes and no. I think that your baseline needs to be something different than just completely getting rid of masks as an option. You know, if you want to set a baseline, maybe it's that you can't throw people in jail for certain things, right? Or that you can't make certain things a misdemeanor. But to say that we can't respond with a mask when we have no idea what other diseases may be coming down the pike, I think is also going a step too far.
Representative Gannon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And Ms. Packer, with regard to Representative Scott's question about health and safety in the chambers, hearing chambers at Boise City Hall, I can answer that question if the committee wants me to, because I was present when somebody had a heart attack.
Representative Gannon, do you have a question for Ms. Packer?
No, but I can answer. But I can answer Representative Scott's question.
Okay, maybe hang on to that till we have discussion.
All right.
On a motion if one is made. Okay. Any further questions for Ms. Packer? Representative Alfieri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Packer, for coming this morning. This is kind of a multi-layered situation that we're discussing here, so I'm going to throw a couple of things at you. The first thing is, I'm wondering under what constitutional authority do you believe that cities have the right to impose a certain type of action on a citizen, such as wearing a mask? And along with that, knowing what we know now about the ineffectiveness of masks as stated by the CDC, as well as many other health authorities, why would we even consider a mask as a possible solution to any type of health crisis?
Ms. Packer.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Alfieri. The authority comes constitutionally and in state statute from this body, and I recognize that. And you do have then the authority and the responsibility to oversee certain things. However, just like the federal government, to the state, to the counties, to the cities, there's a fine line between finding the right balance of authority between all of those areas and finding a consistent policy that makes sense to implement is your right and should happen, but it's oftentimes hard to find a one-size-fits-all for cities because they are so vastly different. Then to your second question, we're again looking in hindsight. And the CDC's position on mask effectiveness may change as technology changes, as masks get better, as a different disease comes down the pike. We don't know. We're not saying that we want that today for any reason because there's not a threat. What we want is the ability to act when something does happen based on the current science, the current tools, the current recommendations at that time, and in an answer to whatever we might face. When you do something like this, then you remove our ability to act in a way that may be in the best interest at that time, whether it was in the past or not. What we're asking for is for the ability for us to take care of our unique needs in any given circumstance when an emergency may arise.
Committee, any further questions? Ms. Packer, you've certainly accommodated many questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, committee.
All right. Committee, next up, we have, there was one more in person, Lee Joe J, in person. Mr. J, please, pardon me.
Lee Joe Lay. Thank you, committee.
Please state your name and
my name is Lee Joe Lay. I'm a founding organizer of the People's Rights Organization.
People's Rights.
We started because of COVID and the gross overstep that the governor and all others took in taking the freedom of association, which was basically what the Constitution was written to protect, the freedom of association between one individual and another to interact as they wish to until one other person's rights
the
were
COVID
violated. So you've heard the
virus
saying, my rights end where yours begin.
Coughing.
And in COVID, that was all
spitting.
ignored. Okay. The Constitution was violated. This body does not have the authority to legislate and ability to mandate such things. So first off, under the U.S. and the Idaho Constitution, that authority does not exist. For me, you don't have a greater power as a government than you as an individual have, okay? I cannot tell you, put on a mask or blank, I'll put you in jail or whatever. I know several people who were thrown in jail for not wearing masks at the health department hearings and things like that.
Oh, that was
and,
Bundy.
You know, we organized a rather large
he's a Bundy
protest,
guy,
and
Salmon
Speaker
Bundy?
Bedke attempted to restrict the number of people who were allowed to assemble, which was a right in the House, and listen to the session. And this right here is a P100 NIOSH OSHA rated mask. Please give me a few more minutes.
Mr. Lay, you're going to need to wrap up quickly if you got
I will quickly.
to-
This is the only mask, carbon activated filter, that can stop an organic material from being breathed into your body.
Okay, Mr. Lay, we're going to have to wrap up. Committee, do you have any questions for Mr. Lay?
And I can answer any of the questions.
Representative Andrus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Lay. Would you mind telling me a little bit more about that mask?
You ever heard of N95 there,
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Andrus?
27 years ago, I was trained on how to use this mask, and it protected me from cyanide gas in a gold mill that I worked at. Okay, I had to wear it around a certain section of it. It stops organic material from coming through the mask with activated carbon. When
Organic
you
material,
wear this
not
mask,
viral.
It stops all organic material, including
Disease.
viruses, including everything else. I took 14 of this style of mask to St. Al's at the beginning of the pandemic, and several months later took them back because they decided it wasn't in their protocol to wear something that actually worked. A NIOSH rating of an N95 means that particulates, it screens out 95% of particulates, screens out almost no bacteria and absolutely no viruses. So the only effective measure that the government may have been able to take if they were going to mandate something that was effective and followed actual science, which was established 23 years before the pandemic and well beyond that, would have been to mandate and pass out NIOSH P100 masks. And instead, we got dual and triple masking of an N95 mask. N95 plus N95 plus N95 is not 270. It's still 95. Okay?
No, come on.
Seeing that the government disposed of their OSHA, the OSHA directives, and went for some randomly,
I wonder if this guy
let's
went
call
in
it
the hospital
orchestrated
and
CDC directives, and just got rid of their own, literally their own regulations on masks in hazardous places, and began this, whatever you might call it, this absolute fundamental deprivation of rights, exposed to me that this was not what the, this was all
Wasn't
a
Bundy
grasp
fined
for power
$80
from the
million or
individual, and this
something?
mask mandate is
By
exactly
St.
that.
Luke's?
Mr. Lay, we do want to stay away from impugning motives, but I appreciate your testimony. Is there any other questions for Mr. Lay? All right, seeing none, thank you for joining the committee today. We're going to go to some virtual testimony now, and we're going to start with Ian Trosoyer.
Good morning, Miss Young. Miss Transgender.
Okay, it appears that Ian is not going to be able to join the committee, so we'll proceed with Randy Reichen. Okay, Randy, welcome to the committee. Can you hear us? Randy, you might need to unmute yourself. We can't hear you. Randy, welcome to the committee. Please state your name and who you represent. All right, committee, I think it's not going to work there.
Well, get the IT person in there to.
We'll give him just a few more seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try Leslie Manukian. Leslie?
Evidently, it's seen, they can see it, but we can't see it, who these people are.
Leslie, welcome to the committee. Please state your name and who you represent, and you have 2 minutes.
There you go.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. My name is Leslie Manukian. I represent Health Freedom Defense Fund, a nationally known nonprofit that seeks to protect our health rights. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Super. Thank you so much. First of all, I just wanted to say that schools didn't do anything in the past except for have the children go home if they were sick. They didn't mask children. I don't know why we would be thinking that was appropriate today.
Yeah.
Secondly, I'd like to say that
science
Haley,
and
the city of Haley actually threatened the police chief, put out a post on Facebook that he would arrest people who did not comply. So it wasn't just Boise. In addition, I think it's really important that we understand that we have known the science for more than a century. In fact, since 1918, we have known that masks do not stop transmission or infection.
Well, we didn't
This was actually written up in an article in
They
Washington
don't stop
Post.
it. They
But we
reduce
knew
the
this because there were
possibility.
cities in San Francisco and in California, San Francisco and
We
others
wore masks,
that did
and our
have
whole
mask
family.
mandates and others that didn't
And
in
none of them
1918,
caught
and there was no
COVID.
difference in
None of them.
outcomes. Washington Post headline was,
Including my
we used masks
97-year-old
before,
mother.
they didn't work,
lived in a
what
nursing
now?
home.
So it's not the case that
Our
we didn't know.
residents around
Secondly,
her were
May
catching
2020,
COVID
CDC
and
published
passing
an
away.
article or published a paper, their own science showing that masks do not stop transmission of
They
respiratory
don't
infections.
stop it, they
and yet
reduce
they
it.
led the country
Because when you're
down the
talking
garden
like you're
path
talking
saying
now,
that masks would work. They knew
there's
from their own research in May of 2020.
Sputal is, you know,
If you
there's
force
little
masks or
droplets,
you
and
allow
that's
cities
where
to
I
have
can
the
smell your
opportunity to mask us,
bad
you
breath.
are essentially forcing people to do something not only against their
Forcing
conscience,
people.
but something that they know.
Have you ever heard of
it's
health?
like
Again,
compelled dress. You're asking them
1.2
to do
million
something that they
people
know
died
is
in the
not
United
appropriate.
States.
And
4%
I don't
of
think
the
population. This is something that belongs in a free country.
They had 17%
Life
of
carries
world
risks,
deaths.
and each
We
of us
did,
has to make
United
our own
States,
assessments
from
of
COVID-19.
how we live our lives.
100 million
time
people
is up.
caught COVID, and
Okay,
35
we can't
million
force medical interventions on
are
people.
in fact
Super.
having
Thank you, Leslie.
long-term COVID.
Representative Scott has a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Leslie, you said you're with the Health Freedom Defense Fund, and I'm guessing that's some kind of a law firm. Have you
No, it's not.
had any cases about masks in your fund, with your defense fund?
Ms. Manukian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Representative Scott, Health Freedom Defense Fund has sued the Biden administration 3 times. We are the organization that stopped
Incredible.
the federal travel mask mandate. And the reason that we stopped the federal travel mask mandate was because CDC lacked the statutory authority to mandate masks, but also because there is no science. CDC failed to submit a single randomized controlled trial to the Federal Register in defense of its or in support of its mandate. Not a single one, because they don't have one.
And others.
So we have successfully took that down.
Died
there is an
because of
abundance of science
COVID-19.
showing that that masks do not
the
actually
vaccines do not work.
as
You're an
purported
anti-vaxxer
in
too,
the community setting, and forcing people to wear these just doesn't make any sense.
I'm so much of an expert.
Follow up.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Leslie, so is that's yes to the lawsuit? Because I thought I've heard that this Freedom
And
Defense
there's the
Fund has
panel
done
of,
something with
medical
lawsuits.
experts.
So I caught maybe one that was successful. Was it successful?
Ms. Manukian.
Oh, yes. Well,
Go ahead.
sorry, Madam Chair.
Oh, yeah. I would say that she's a well, I hit that. Well, that's it. We got to get off to another meeting. But I think you can get the gist of this thing. And it's obvious that the Idaho legislators on this panel in particular, but others, are medical experts.
Let me say that we defeated the federal travel mask mandate. We, however, failed to defeat a mask mandate in Haley, Idaho.
No, you didn't.
And the judge did know that we're not going to see this overreach again, that they're not going to ignore the science that does not support their conclusion. What guarantee do we have of
Other
this?
countries didn't have it.
Right. Thank you, Ms.
The deaths
Manukian.
percentage-wise of
Seeing no further
population.
questions, thank you for your testimony today. Next up, we have Garth Gaylord.
Well, we're going to have to knock this off in 4 minutes. I have another meeting to go to. But,
Garth, welcome to the committee. Please state your name and who you represent. And the next 2 minutes is yours.
Anti-vaxxer.
Hi, I'm Garth Gaylord. Just me. And I just want to thank Legislator Gallagher for bringing this mask bill to the
Okay. They're obviously lining up all the testifiers or testimony
mask mandate bill
from
going,
a guy like this is wearing
because
this.
the COVID is still in the air. It can get in your hair. It can get in your ears.
Okay, well, maybe
it can get in your eyes. And so I'd ask Gallagher to actually put a goggle mandate as well, and maybe a helmet, because you don't want to get in your hair. Then you touch your hair while you're shampooing, and it gets in your mouth. So, and like gloves too. People should have to wear gloves all the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All those legislators, it was alarming that so many legislators just kept meeting during the COVID without masks on, just causing so much danger. I think there should be an investigation into like all the contact tracing information to see how many people were killed by the certain people that didn't wear masks, or that, recklessly just allowed people to breathe air and show their face. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm in favor of this bill.
Yeah, okay. This is, yeah. So it looks like the committee's only allowing people like him and pro this bill to testify. See, they just stopped it. Somebody stopped it anyway. And then maybe it's the internet, I don't know.
Not wearing a mask. Many times I was honestly, they twisted my wrist, slammed my head. I spent 3 weeks in jail for not wearing a mask.
Oh yeah, you were one of the people that stormed St. Luke's, eh?
So they kept me.
With Ammon Bundy. And was it $54 million is what he got fined? Are you going to contribute to Mr. Bundy's defense? Anyway, we got to go. I got to go to another meeting. I hope you enjoyed this. And I'm sure the committee is going to pass it based on guys like this who are not medical people at all.